Welcome to today's lesson on multiplying decimals by integers. Today we're going to discuss two different methods that you can use to multiply whole numbers by decimals up to the hundredths place. Let's go ahead and get started. We are going to begin today by multiplying 3 wholes times 3/10. Now it's important to remember that multiplication is repeated addition. So we are going to repeatedly add 3/10 3 whole times. And we're going to do this starting with our first method using the number line. So we are going to mark off 3/10 on our number line 3 whole times. So I have 0 to 3/10, and that's going to be my first set of 3/10. And then I'm going to move 3 more tenths. 1, 2, 3. And now for my last set of 3/10. I have 1/10, 2/10, 3/10. And as you can see, I now have 3/10 in one group, 3/10 in two groups, 3/10 in three groups. So I have 3/10 represented 3 times. And that landed me at 9/10 on the number line. So now I know that 3 wholes times 3/10 equals 9/10. And that's how you use your number line to repeatedly add your decimal value the whole number of times you're multiplying it by. Let's go ahead and try our second method of multiplying decimals by integers. We're going to use the chart that you can see on the screen. Now, as you can see, we have 1 whole represented on this chart, 2 tenths, and 4 hundredths. So let's go ahead and let's write this in our equation. We have 1 whole, and past our decimal in our tenths, we have 2 tenths and 4 hundredths. We are going to be multiplying this by 4 wholes. So this second method uses, again, repeated addition for multiplication to add 1 whole, 2 tenths, and 4 hundredths 4 whole times. Now, before we start repeating 1 and 24 hundredths, I'm actually going to be drawing a dotted line beneath it. And this is just going to separate each of the 4 times that we added together to make sure that we stay organized. So we have 1 and 24 hundredths once, 1 and 24 hundredths twice, 1 and 24 hundredths 3 times, and 1 and 24 hundredths 4 times. So we now have 1 and 24 hundredths represented 4 times. So now all we have to do is add each of these pieces together. So let's start walking through our problem. We're going to start with our hundredths place. 4 times 4 equals 16, and then we carry our 1. Now we have our 4 hundredths, and we should have 16 in all. So we have 4, 8, 12, 16 hundredths. But why did we carry that 1? Well, that's because 10 hundredths equals 1/10. And we have our 10 hundredths highlighted here, which we ended up regrouping for 1/10. So these 6 hundredths that we have left over are left in our hundredths place. And then those 10 hundredths that we grouped into a tenth, we then brought over into our tenths place. So let's continue on and multiply 4 times 2. 4 times 2 equals 8, plus 1 equals 9. That means we should have 9/10. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have 9/10. We bring down our decimal point and now have to multiply our ones place. 1 times 4 equals 4. And when we go over to our ones, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 and 24 hundredths times 4 equals 4 and 96 hundredths. Let's go ahead and try a word problem together. Seda buys 3 pounds of bananas at the supermarket. 1 pound of bananas costs 67 cents. How much money does Seda spend on bananas? Well, first, let's represent that on our chart. We want to represent 67 cents, which means we have a 6 in the tenths place, or 6/10, and 7 in the hundredths place. So we have 7 hundredths. Let's also set this up as an equation. We have 67 cents, or 67 hundredths, and we're multiplying it by 3 pounds. So now we need to represent 67 hundredths 3 times. We already have it once on our chart, so let's go ahead and draw it twice, and then we need it one more time because we're multiplying by 3. So now we have 67 hundredths represented 3 whole times. 7 times 3 equals 21. That's going to leave us a 1 in the hundredths place and regroup a 2 into the tenths place. But let's review why we do that. If we have 10 hundredths, we regroup these 10 hundredths into 1/10. But we still have a whole nother set of 10 hundredths which we regroup into another tenth. That left us with 1/100th left over, and then we regrouped 2 new tenths. Okay, let's go ahead and let's move on to our tenths. 6 times 3 equals 18, plus 2 equals 20. So I have a 0 in my tenths place and regroup my tenths into 2 wholes. So let's see what that looks like over here. We have one group of 10 tenths, which we regrouped into 1 whole, and we have another group of 10 tenths, which we regrouped into a second whole. And that left us with 0 tenths left over. Now let's go ahead and finish out our problem. 3 times 0 equals 0, plus the 2 wholes which we regrouped equals 2 in the ones place. So that means that Seda spent $2.01 on bananas. Let's go ahead and try one more word problem together. James runs 4/10 of a mile twice a week. How many miles does James run each week? Well, we know if he runs 4/10 of a mile each time he goes out, and he runs twice a week, we can go ahead and set up our equation. Our next step is going to be using our number line. It's labeled from 0 to 1 with every tenth marked off. So we're going to have 2 whole groups of 4 tenths. So let's go ahead and mark our first group of 4 tenths. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths. And I'm going to label that below. We have one group of 4 tenths. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths again. So we have 4 tenths 2 times. Now all we have to do is count down our number line to find out where we ended. 1/10, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths, 7 tenths, 8 tenths. That means that James runs 8 tenths of a mile each week. Let's review what you've learned in today's lesson by multiplying 2 tenths times 3. All right, as you can see in our chart, we already have 2 tenths represented, but we want to show it 3 times. So I have 2 tenths once, 2 tenths 2 times, 2 tenths 3 times. And when I add these up all together, 2 tenths plus 2 tenths plus 2 tenths, that gives me 6 tenths. Let's also practice on our number line. I'm going to have 2 tenths once, twice, 3 times. And when I show 2 tenths 3 whole times, or in 3 complete groups, that leaves me at 6 tenths.